Blackstone Audio presents Thinking the 20th Century by Tony Judt with Timothy Snyder. This book is read by Ralph Cosham. Foreword. This book is history, biography, and ethical treatise. It is a history of modern political ideas in Europe and the United States. Its subjects are power and justice, as understood by liberal, socialist, communist, nationalist, and fascist intellectuals from the late 19th through the early 21st century. It is also the intellectual biography of the historian and essayist Tony Judt, born in London in the middle of the 20th century, just after the cataclysm of the Second World War and the Holocaust, and just as communists were securing power in Eastern Europe. Finally, it is a contemplation of the limitations and capacity for renewal of political ideas and of the moral failures and duties of intellectuals in politics. To my mind, Tony Judt is the only person capable of writing such a broad treatment of the politics of ideas. As of 2008, Tony was the author of intense and polemical studies of French history, essays on intellectuals and their engagement, and a magnificent history of Europe since 1945, entitled Postwar. He had allowed his gifts for moralization and for historiography to find distinct outlets in brief reviews and longer scholarly studies, and had brought both forms very close to perfection. This book arose, however, because at a certain point that November I understood that Tony would be incapable of any further writing at all, at least in the conventional sense. I proposed to Tony that we write a book together the day after I realized that he could no longer use his hands. Tony had been stricken with ALS, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a degenerative neurological disorder that brings progressive paralysis and certain and usually rapid death. This book takes the form of a long conversation between Tony and myself. On Thursdays during the winter, spring, and summer of 2009, I took the 8:50 train from New Haven to New York's Grand Central Station, then the subway downtown to the neighborhood where Tony lived with his wife, Jennifer Homans, and their sons Daniel and Nick. Our meetings were scheduled for 11 in the morning. Usually I had about 10 minutes in a cafe to collect my thoughts about the day's subject and make a few notes. I washed my hands in very hot water in the cafe, and then again in Tony's apartment. Tony suffered terribly from colds in his condition, and I wanted to be able to grasp his hand. When we began our conversation in January 2009, Tony was still walking.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?